Hello and welcome to this video which follows the step-by-step guide from Aerosoft for their Airbus product. In this video today I'm going to cover the steep approach which is described in chapter 7 of their step-by-step guide. This follows a flight from Hamburg to London City. So as usual, when we get started with these things, probably the first place we should visit is the fuel planner. So I've loaded that up in advanced mode now. Quick reminder, we should be using units of kilograms. For this step also make sure you select the appropriate aircraft type. For this one we want to use the A318. 80 passengers, 2,000 kilos of cargo. Departure airport is Echo Delta Delta Hotel, which is Hamburg, and arrival airport Echo Golf Lima Charlie, City of London Airport. Total distance of 384 miles. Planned flight level is 310, and with all this taken into account, our calculation figures that we're interested in here are the trim, which is 0.0, perfect. And our total value here, 7.419. We'll use some of these values when we enter them into the aircraft before we take off. So as you can see, I've started up Flight Sim X and I've selected the Airbus A318. I've got this one in BA livery. Not that that makes much difference, of course, but it is important for what we're going to do that you select the A318. For the current weather, we're going to change this and use user-defined weather, and we'll click Customize, and from there select the all weather station. So the weather that we set now is going to apply to everywhere equally. With that done, advanced weather, and here on the wind page select a speed of 7 knots and a gust speed of 7 knots as well. For the wind direction, let's set it to 270, and we'll leave turbulence as none. Come over to the temperature and pressure page and dial in a pressure at sea level of 1021 and temperature of 20 degrees, and that goes along with the instructions for the steep approach for the step-by-step guide. OK on that. We'll have a quick summary of it here. That's all OK. Click OK. And OK again. We are good to go with user-defined weather. For the current location, I selected it by airport ID of EDDH, Echo Delta Delta Hotel, which is Hamburg in northern Germany. For the runway starting position, I choose gate 15. And that seems to work just fine. Current time and season, select what you will here. I've just selected daytime at 9:30 for today's date, the 22nd of December. Quite how we're going to achieve 20 degrees Celsius on the 22nd of December, I don't know, but luckily this is a simulator world and we can do things like this. Okay, with all those set, we're ready to fly. So here we are on the stand, cold and dark, and ready to go through our normal procedure. So let's go to the overhead. We don't need our integrated lights, that's okay. Let's turn the batteries on, and the external power, and the APU, and the nav lights. With those on, let's turn on the ADIRS. And then come down to our screens and fire those up. Okay, with those done, over to the first officer's MCDU, and here go to the load fuel page, select a NIT load sheet, which is the one that we just created, and we'll do an instant load again to get everything loaded up. and we'll run the cockpit prep checklist, and while it's running I'll enter in the route into the captain's MCDU. So checklist on, co-pilot on, and now start checklist.
Cockpit preparation checklist.
Batteries,
Both on.
electrical power,
APU on.
navigation lights,
On.
engine master,
Both off.
engine mode selector,
Checked normal.
landing gear lever,
Checked.
parking brake,
Off.
flaps,
Checked position.
speed brake lever,
Checked retracted.
thrust levers,
Idle.
transponder mode,
Checked standby.
radio control panel,
Set on.
ECAM recall,
Checked.
anti-skid,
On.
flight director,
On.
emergency lights,
Set.
no smoking signs,
Set on.
anti-ice,
Off.
probe window heat,
Auto.
air condition,
Checked.
ventilation panel,
Is checked.
electric panel,
Checked.
fuel pumps,
Set on.
hydraulics,
Is checked.
AccuBrake pressure,
Checked.
ground proximity warning system,
On.
electronic flight control system,
On.
ADIRS,
Checked.
emergency equipment,
Is checked.
checklist complete.
So as that was going on, I've been entering a whole load of data into the captain's MCDU for the flights that we're about to undertake. People who've watched my original video, which is the standard step-by-step guide, know how this process goes, so I don't want to repeat it here and bore you. If it's new to you, please take a look at video 1 of 4, which follows the standard step-by-step guide from Aerosoft. Okay, with those pieces of information entered, let's go through the final bit of cockpit prep for me, which is to make sure that LS mode is set to off, that the ND mode and range is set to arc and 10. I'm going to dial in an altitude of 5,000, that's the transition altitude from here, and push that in, push the speed, push the headings so that they're managed by the flight computer, and then close the doors with Shift E. So at this stage, as ever, we're waiting for the IR to align.
Captain, the cabin is secure. All passengers are aboard.
2 minutes still to go
Before
for
start
that.
checklist.
Windows and doors,
Closed and locked.
APU,
APU on.
APU bleed,
Set on.
external power,
Disconnected and off.
cabin signs,
Set on.
thrust levers,
Idle.
parking brake,
Set on.
bearer reference,
Set. 1 0 2 1.
1, 0, 2, 1. Check. Beacon lights,
Set on.
checklist complete.
Okay, we're going to do a start with pushback, so I'm going to key 1. And then go down to the first officer's MCDU to enter in the detail. This time I'm going to come back 10 meters. And we're going to turn to the right to line us up on the correct runway. And we'll just wait to get the ADIRS aligned before we start the move. If we move before they're aligned, then there's every likelihood that they won't align, and we'll kind of be stuck until they finally do figure out where on earth they are.
Ground, we have ATC clearance for push and start. Please confirm ground equipment and services are clear.
Roger. The ground equipment and stairs are clear, all doors are closed. Steering pin is in position and we're ready when you are, Captain.
Start pushback.
Roger, sir. Please release your parking brakes.
Parking brakes released.
Starting pushback, you can start both engines at your discretion, Captain.
OK.
Starting engine 2.
We'll fire up engine 2 and wait until we receive the call that the startup has been completed successfully, and then we'll fire up engine 1.
Engine 2 is stabilized.
Starting number 1.
So I've opened up a window here so that we can see where runway 23 is, and you can get an idea for where and how
Engine 1 is
to taxi
stabilized.
towards it.
And pushback is complete, Captain. Please set your parking brakes.
Parking brakes are set.
Okay then, Captain. Tow bar disconnected. You know steering pin is removed. All clear. Signal on the right. Have a good run, sir.
After start checklist.
Engine mode selector.
Set.
APU bleed.
Set off.
APU master.
Set off.
Ground spoilers.
Set.
Rudder trim.
Checked 0.
Pitch trim.
Checked.
Flight controls.
Full left. Full right. Neutral. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Rudder. Full left. Full right. Neutral.
Check. Flaps.
Flaps 2.
Anti-ice.
Off.
ECAM status.
Checked.
ECAM door page.
Checked.
Hand signal.
Received.
Checklist complete.
Okay, let's taxi out. I'll release the brakes with the period of full stop key, and let's move forward a little bit with the throttle. Which once we've got going, I can cut back a bit after I've done the brake test.
Taxiing checklist.
Nose light.
Set on.
Brake check.
Pedal pressed. Checked 0.
Check. Auto brakes.
Max.
Takeoff data.
Reviewed.
FCU.
Checked.
Flight instruments.
Checked.
Check. TO config.
Set.
Checklist complete.
So it's fairly clear, I hope to see from the map on the top left there which taxi route to follow to line up on runway 23 for takeoff. I'll key off the before takeoff checklist now by pressing key 1 on the keyboard.
Flight attendants, seats for takeoff. Before takeoff checklist.
Brake temperature.
Checked.
Brake fans.
Off.
Engine mode selector.
Checked normal.
TCAS.
TARA, tilt above.
Exterior lights.
Set on.
Sliding tables.
Approaching.
Stowed.
2, 3.
Stowed. Checklist complete.
Okay, so let's get ready for the takeoff. The more eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that there's a disconnect between when I taxied onto the runway
23 on runway 2
and the position
3.
I'm in now for the takeoff. And that's because during my takeoff roll I had one of those infamous FSX crashes. Sorry about that. Rather than try and record the whole thing again, I thought it was easier just to come to the beginning of the runway and do the takeoff from here and just kind of stitch it all together. So, we're all lined up, ready to go, throttle forward, take it up to about 60%.
On runway 2
Break
3
off.
on runway 2 3.
And full
Take
forward.
off. Man, toga, SRS and runway.
Check. Power set.
Apply a bit of left rudder here to keep us on the
100
centre line.
knots.
Checked.
Beat 1. Rotate.
And up we go.
Positive climb.
Gear up.
Gear up.
Navigation.
Check. Gears up, lights off.
Climb thrust. Autopilot on.
And there we go, that's us safely off the ground and flying the standard instrument departure.
Flap 0.
Speed check, flap 0.
And the after takeoff checklist.
Engine mode selector.
Check normal.
Spoilers.
Disarmed.
Flaps.
Check retracted.
Landing gear.
Gear up. Lights off.
Exterior lights.
Set off.
Tax.
Both on.
Anti-ice.
Off.
T-class.
Checked.
Altimeter.
Barrow reference set and cross-checked. 1, 0, 2, 1.
1, 0, 2, 1. Check. Checklist complete.
Okay, so there's not much of excitement to note now really until we get just before the top of descent. So I'm going to cut the video here and you'll rejoin me just before top of descent. So you rejoin me as I am approaching the top of descent. The next thing I'm going to do is to program the MCDU with details of our arrival. So I'll come down to the approach page, entering QNH of 1021, temperature of 20 degrees, winds are 2707 knots, the transition altitude is 6,000 feet. VAP is 133 knots, 550 is our decision height, and that's all keyed in and ready to go, but I won't activate the approach until later in the flight. So we're about 19 miles away from the top of descent now. And I can either wait until then to start the descent checklist, or I can key it in earlier. So with a view to not having you spend too much time in the video watching the lovely scenery fly by, we'll start it early and I'll key 1.
Descent preparation checklist.
Seatbelt signs.
On.
Anti-ice.
Off.
Landing information.
Received.
Altimeter.
Standard.
Error radio.
Checked.
Checklist complete.
Okay, the one big difference between this video and the video I did on the standard step-by-step guide is that we're going to warn the aircraft that our landing will consist of a steep approach. And to do this, we simply go to the overhead panel and press on the steep approach button. I come down to the FCU now, dial in the new altitude that we need to be at for our descent, which is all the way down to 2,000 feet. Now the instructions ask us to wait until we reach the top of descent before initiating the descent. Reasons for this are manifold. I suspect real world it's so that the lovely paying passengers in the back can enjoy a bit more time without being required to wear their seat belts. But for our sake, for a simulator, we could start it early if we wanted to. What would happen if we do start it early is that we go into quite a shallow, gentle descent until we reach the top of descent, where it will carry on at that angle until it intercepts where our original vertical path might have been, and will then descend at the appropriate rate to get us to 2,000 feet at the requisite point. So we'll start the descent early just by pushing on this knob.
Initiating descent.
FMA check.
Radar tilt.
Set below.
Now pretty much that is it, and there's little more to see or do until we get down to the phase when we're starting our approach checklist and coming on to finals. So again, I'm going to pause the video here and you'll rejoin me as we start our approach checklist. Away to the left hand side now you can see the Thames estuary, and just ahead of us the Spear waypoint, which is directly overhead the airfield you can see just on the nose of the aircraft. Don't worry, that's not where we're landing. London City is a bit further along the estuary just ahead. So not much to do just yet. Waiting for the points where the approach checklist will start, whereupon we'll get busy pretty quickly. We have a very short period of time within which to do quite a bit of preparation for the descent. The manual with all of the information on the approach is available, of course, with the product, so it may be worth having a look at that in conjunction with what I'm trying to do here on the screen. Shortly, when the approach checklist starts, we'll go through that. When it's finished, I'll manually activate the approach phase on the captain's MCDU. In fact, we're approaching that phase now. I'll kick it off just a bit early, just to make sure that we stay ahead of the plane. I'll key 1.
Approach checklist.
Beacon status.
Checked.
Sliding tables.
Stowed.
Stowed. Cabin signs.
Checked. 1021.
1021. Checked. Checklist complete.
I'm not sure why we lost focus on FSX there for a moment, but we did.
Flight
Explains
attendants, prepare for landing.
why it went quiet all of a sudden. Sorry about that. Let's activate the approach phase
flaps 1.
Speed check, flaps 1.
This starts
Flaps
slowing
2.
us down.
Speed check, flaps 2.
With flaps 2 set, I'm going to manually dial in the speed of 160 knots, and that's because we have a constraint coming up that we need to adhere to, and this is shown on the approach plate. And I guess the way that the FMGS and the MCDU work, they're not actually holding or setting that correctly. So there's a sort of manual override step we're doing here, which is to set this speed to 160 knots. Once we pass the Lima Sierra Romeo 06 waypoint, which you can see now on the navigation display, I'm going to set the speed back to the V approach speed of 135 knots, and again do this manually. That's because the calculated V approach speed is 130 knots, which is dangerously close to the alpha floor setting. And if we trigger the alpha floor setting, our Airbus goes into Mr. Super Health and Safety mode and throws the throttles fully forward to get us away from a situation where we may inadvertently stall. So although this isn't a process which is part of managed settings, it is an approach apparently that's used by real-world pilots, realizing that the managed numbers are just a little bit too close for comfort. They'll manually override, and that's what we're simulating here. Take a closer look at our ND. That's the waypoint coming up, whereupon we'll need to dial in our new lower speed. It's a curious thing, every time I've flown this steep approach per the book, we seem to go through a hunting phase here almost, where it's trying to keep to 160 knots whilst at the same time descending to make sure we're down at 2,000 feet at the appropriate point. But there's a dangerous, well not a dangerous, but an interesting balancing act going on here between the speed and our altitude stroke rate of descent. And the only way I can describe it is like hunting. We seem to power up and then cut the power quite quickly and then dip down and then power up and we pick the nose up and then power down and the nose drops again quite quickly. Just ahead in the distance there you can see some of the tall buildings in London starting to be drawn, so I expect a corresponding drop in the frame rate as we
2,500.
You can just about make out the red lights of the Pappy now, at the end of the runway that we're about to land on at London City.
Localizer alive.
Okay, with that call, let's push our approach to capture the localizer and then the glide slope.
Gear down.
Gear down.
Having reached our waypoint now, we have an instruction or a reminder at the top of the screen to set the VAP target speed. So dial in 135.
Flaps 3.
now.
Speed check, flaps 3.
Flaps full.
Localizer capture check, flaps full.
Speed brakes.
Full.
It's all set.
Landing checklist.
Landing gear.
Down and locked, 3 greens.
Speed brake lever.
Full.
Auto brakes.
Medium.
Exterior lights.
On.
Go around altitude.
Checked.
Landing memo.
Checked no blue.
Checklist complete.
So that's all set. We're lined up. We're on the localizer, and at 2,000 feet, we're still waiting
Glide slope alive.
to intercept the glide slope, as if by magic here it comes. And even looking at it now, you can see this is a fairly steep approach. Only now have the lights come on to indicate that we're approaching the right glide slope. Our decision height here is 550 feet. When that happens, I'll disengage the autopilot, and then it's all down to taking off the throttle at the appropriate point and flaring, which happens considerably earlier because we're coming down at a much steeper angle. We'll get calls starting at about 130 feet, advising us on when to retard the throttle and flare the aircraft.
1,000.
Too high, too high.
Now that's the RAAS getting itself all excited now. But we're going to ignore that. Carry on.
Approaching. 28.
100 above. Minimum
Autopilot off.
500.
Unstable, unstable.
400.
How appropriate. Unstable, we certainly are.
300. 200.
Stand by. Stand by. Flare.
50, 40, 30, 20. Retard. 10. 5.
Long landing, long
Ground
landing.
spoilers.
And reverse
Reverse
is on.
screen.
600
70
meters
knots.
remaining.
And take off the reverse thrust.
Manual brakes.
Auto brakes off.
There we go, that's us safely down. City of London. Certainly was a long landing, but as you can see, still lots of space to be able to stop and clear the runway. I guess my landing is long because although I do cut the throttle in good time, I flare the aircraft perhaps a little too much, so we're just still floating above the runway for a short period of time, or a longer period of time than perhaps we should.
APU on.
After landing checklist.
Exterior lights.
Checked.
Ground spoilers.
Set off.
Engine mode selector.
Checked normal.
Flaps.
Checked retracted.
TCAS.
Checked standby.
Brake temperature.
Checked.
APU.
On.
Checklist complete.
Very keen for me to put the parking brake on already, but I think we need to be a bit better lined up than we currently are before I do that. Okay, so that's the end of the video for the steep approach following the step-by-step guide for Aerosoft's Airbus. I hope it's been fun, maybe a little bit useful in places here or there. Thanks very much for watching. I look forward to welcoming you to another video on the Aerosoft Airbus in the near future.